Well, hey guys, how's it going? Just doing a little maintenance on the Discus tank, but since you're here, I want to give you some tips on Discus care. I've been keeping Discus for probably 20 years, and I've made my fair share of mistakes, and maybe I can save you from making a few of your own. One of my biggest tips to you right now is to not use this Discus buffer. Don't fall for the same thing that I did, since everything that you read on Discus say that they will love about a pH of about 6.4, and you start adding this to your water, and if you don't check it every single day, you're going to start having pH swings. This will bring it down to 6.8, 6.7. You can even get it down to 6.4. But if you wait a few days in between checking it or adding some, pH could drastically swing. You're going to get ups and downs, and that's something that Discus just cannot tolerate. And I have unfortunately lost Discus because of this. And one way to tell that if you're starting to have that problem, these Discus will almost swim like they're trying to get out of the water. You see them darting around and trying to get out of the water, it's either you might need to check your ammonia or your pH. But if you do regular water changes, just water right out of the tap, that's the pH that you're going to want to have. Mine is 7.6. I change about 30% every week, and they do just fine. So I would definitely just not even try to target that. If you're trying to breed the Discus, you may want to drop the pH down below 7 slightly, as that, as you read things on it, that affects maybe the male to female population in the eggs. I'm not sure that I believe that, but anything's possible. Also, as far as water softness, I don't use the water softener on it. They do fine. But you can. I would not use RODI water solely on them. You can half and half, because they do need the minerals. Nothing can live in zero TDS water. So you definitely don't want to do that. Don't make that mistake. And as long as you're making softer water, it also is going to bring the pH down just a little bit. So if you have a high pH water like I do at 7.6 and you don't like it, just add some RODI water and it should bring it down slightly. Another thing that I would recommend is probably just, if you have them anywhere, leave them in a place where there's not a lot of foot traffic. These guys are kind of camera shy right now, and they're pretty timid, definitely really timid. And if you have a lot like a place of business, you probably are not a good place for Discus. And anything that causes stress, that right off the bat, that's something you should know. Anything that causes stress is going to make these guys sick. And when they get sick, they're really hard to treat. They're really sensitive to antibiotics if they happen to get an infection. So, it's very easy to overdose them and kill their kidneys. Another thing with them, as far as the like the foot track, especially like if you're going to get Discus, don't just get one or two. These unfortunately are just, the guys I have left. Now they're old, and all the ones that I had were old, and unfortunately just, one by one they've dropped off. But definitely buy a group if you can afford it, because they're going to do way better in groups of 4, somewhere around in there. Also, I'd recommend getting Discus. If you already have Discus, don't buy, a little quarter-size Discus and put it in there. They're going to get bullied, and that's going to cause stress, and that's going to either lead to parasites or to, a bacterial infection. So, keep that in mind when you buy Discus. Try to get them all the same size if you can afford it. Also, I've done really well with a nice flake food. I feed some frozen brine shrimp and mysis shrimp. I have a little beef heart. One thing that I have found when I had the younger Discus is that when you fed bloodworms, boy, do they love bloodworms. These guys will eat bloodworms like crazy. And when the younger discus I would have, when I fed bloodworms a lot, I'd get, bloat. They'd bloat up, and I'd try to treat for internal parasites. Sometimes that would work, sometimes it wouldn't. I use Epsom salt just in case they were blocked up. And, I'd lose discus. Couldn't figure out why. And as I started to read, I found out that a lot of people were having trouble with bloodworms. It's either something in the bloodworms, either they're not as nutritional as they need, but there's something with the bloodworms. It's either a parasite or maybe a bacterial infection. Something is causing that. And once I quit feeding bloodworms, I quit having the bloat. I didn't have so much trouble with the big guys, but the little guys I definitely had a lot of trouble with. And I had a couple of the big ones that got, had a little bit of bloat. So I just totally cut out bloodworms. Now I had fed, it may be something with the freeze dried, because I had fed some previous discus I had many years ago. You could buy packets of live bloodworms, live brine shrimp, and I fed that quite often with no problems. So, I don't know if it's something with the freeze dried, but definitely I've noticed since I've quit feeding bloodworms, very little problem. So I got beef heart. Like I said, a good flake food. As long as you feed them a good variety of nutritional food, they're going to do fine. Now, another thing, if you're just getting discus, especially if you're buying smaller discus, you're probably going to run into this quite often. And you'll get your discus, you'll put them in the water, they'll look kind of fine. You'll notice them a few minutes later kind of laying on the bottom flat, almost as if they're dead. And what I found is they just go into shock. It's a really stressful event to go from, whatever tank they were into to whatever your tank is. And the little guys don't fare so good. So it's always good if you're going to buy discus to have a good, powerful air pump and a good air block. The air stones do okay, but a good, good square air block that can really churn the water will do much better. I usually place that near the discus if I can. Give them a little bit of air, extra oxygen. Also, probably what you want to do is this is a 90-gallon tank, and I'm going to want to take this water down to nearly 50%. As soon as you start to see that, that's going to allow my pump to start. The gravity is going to start churning. That water is pouring in. It's going to start churning, getting the lower oxygen water off of the bottom up to the top. And as you can see, the little air bubbles here is going to, that's going to even increase with the extra velocity of the water. That's always that's good. That's good for gas exchange. Get some of that carbon dioxide out and good oxygen in. And with that stone, over the course of about 5 or 6 hours, don't just do this and think that they look all right, because they'll kind of, come back to life, start swimming. Take all that out, put your water in, right back. So what you would do, just maybe every hour or so, just add a little more water. You can always take the water that's in there, put it into a container, slowly add it back, or just add new water. Either one's fine. But definitely leave the air stone in overnight, as much as you can help them. And you'll usually find out that the next day, those discus that you thought were sure enough dead on the bottom will be swimming around eating. Now, I would say this works probably 99 times out of 100. But you just get that one that maybe is just not going to live, unfortunately, no matter what you do. But generally, that's it. Just consistency. If you can do anything that's consistent, that just keep pH the same, feeding the water the same, temperature the same. As long as you clean out the water every so often, keep ammonia from rising. These guys are going to do great. I've had some discus. I had maybe about 5 or 6 beautiful discus, and had them for about 5 years, and decided I was going to get a breeding pair of discus. And I thought, well, I'm going to drop the water down to 6.4 where it belongs. We're going to get everything right. And as soon as I started doing that, I wound up having sick discus. I believe they had the plague. I believe they had the discus plague, and nothing I did saved the discus that I had before. My breeding pair did okay, but all the discus that were there before that had no problems whatsoever, as soon as I started trying to manipulate the pH, I started having problems. You know, that stressed them out. They weren't used to that, and you know, I didn't know any better at the time, unfortunately, but I do now. So that would just be my tip to you: is just keep everything across the board, whatever comes out of your tap, if at all possible. You know, just that's your pH. That's the hardness of the water. You know, you like I said, you can add half and half RODI, but just as long as you do that consistently all the time, you're going to do fine with discus. And I love them. They're beautiful. They're colorful. They have personality. And as you can see, I've kind of had an experiment here where I've added a Severum, and she has done really well in here. Because unfortunately now they were swimming around happy until I started shooting this, and now they're all shy. They know something's different, I guess. And you know, I'm worried that she was going to outcompete them for the food. That's not happening. She is aggressive to eat the food first, but then once she gets her food, all their food, they get their food right beside her. So yeah, it's not a big deal. She was slightly aggressive when I first put her in there, but you know, just give it a couple weeks, they were all done fine. And but as you can see, I've got quite a bit of algae starting to grow up here that I need to get rid of. And accident. So I've got a little bit of maintenance ahead of me, a little bit of feeding to do, and I was hoping to get them to come to the tank here, which they could show off, but that's just not going to happen. Also, you know, I keep my temperature. There's another thing before I get out of here. Keep that temperature around 80. Yeah, you know, if you get it up there to 85, you know, they're going to be happy. They're going to like that. They're going to eat. But also, when you do that, as many discus owners do, and you know, you're going to wind up with columnaris. Columnaris loves 85-degree temperature. It just loves it. It'll wind up being around the substrate, and just the first time they're stressed, boom, they got it. So that's the thing, that I keep mine at 80 degrees. They do fine. They eat plenty. So, like I said, just, you know, you have to just a little bit of reading up. But, you know, if you're planning on getting discus, you know, you're going to do fine. But you just have to keep it clean. They do have to have a clean tank. And it just, as long as you're not lazy, do it every week. Takes 10 minutes. You're all right. So I hope that helped you guys. And I'm going to get back to cleaning my tank. And we'll see you later. Thank you.